Hey everyone, welcome to another recording session for the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. As you can see, the team tonight, John Richardson, Charlie Cook. We are scheduled to be interviewing Rob Pincus. As soon as Rob signs in, we'll get everything lined up and going that way, but no Rob as of this moment in time. So we will we'll see what happens there. But let's see here. Let me go look at show notes. And I want to remind everybody as we get started that if you want to comment on the show, you can, if you're watching on Facebook's Polite Society podcast page, or you're looking at us on Polite Society Podcast's YouTube page, you can comment on those live videos. We're picked up and we're put a lot of other places. If you're watching anywhere else, the easiest way to get to us is go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag PSP, and we'll get your comments on the air. We'll discuss them. Bonus points if your comments are humorous tonight. So, all right, John, Charlie, we ready to fly, man?
Ready.
All right. Here we go. Masada Yub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masada Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. And I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, November the 14th, 2022. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about last week's elections and their fallout so far.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we'll talk about folks who don't pogo. So climb aboard,
Strap in,
and hang on.
Episode 640 of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast starts right now. All right, we are back. It's Monday night. It is 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. Means it's time for another episode of Polite Society Podcast. Guys, it's been a week, and we've got a lot of news to get to. I can see Rob Pincus getting set up, getting ready for his interview. But we're going to do as we normally do and go over what we've been doing since the last time we were on the air as Polite Society. Charlie, what's been going on with you for the last week, bud?
Last Tuesday, I put out episode 159 of Riding Shotgun, and my episode was Adam Kraut, the new executive director of the Second Amendment Foundation, and I filmed the show with him in Dallas at the Gun Rights Policy Conference just before he took this position. So we had a lot of stuff to talk about. We talked about the 18 to 20-year-olds in West Virginia that were doing a really good job getting their ducks in a row so they can fight with the government and be able to possess some firearms. And Adam he's going to be an amazing addition to the Second Amendment Foundation, and he's a smart guy, and everyone should check out the episode.
Oh,
John,
I agree.
what's been happening?
I was able to catch that episode, and it's kind of a timing glitch where it was just a couple days after you did that it was announced he was the new executive director. And so I wish you would have caught him just a little later, but because I would have loved for you two to talk about his new position, but we got to do that a few weeks ago anyway.
Yeah, it was kind of fun because I said, so what are you doing now? Because he recently left FPC before that, and he's like, I'm just kind of unemployed, doing some freelance work here and there, and then lo and behold, bam.
Yeah. And yeah, do go check that out over on Charlie's YouTube channel, and it's out on podcast. It's out everywhere. So, John, what's been up with you since the last time you were on the air, man?
Well, I was gone the last 2 weeks for a family vacation to the Panhandle of Florida. We had a great time. But I really shouldn't go there during election years, as the results are always disappointing nationally. It happened in 2020, and this year we were there again for 2022, and the results are kind of disappointing. Now that we are back, the weather is frigid. I don't think it got below 60 when we were there. Now we're down into the upper 20s. And more importantly, we still don't know who's going to control the House. We know the Republicans did not win the Senate.
Yeah.
Barely. And
Wow.
I thought that, and if Adam Laxalt had won, that would have been the best argument to vote for Herschel Walker. Now that's gone. So, anyway, we'll see. So,
Well,
how about you and Susan?
I would say the best argument to vote for Herschel Walker is he's not a Democrat. He's probably not coming for your guns.
That's true. And besides, do you want to really vote for somebody named Warlock? I'm sorry, Warnock?
Well, yeah. Look at what Pennsylvania did. So,
it's so let's see. Yes, of course we got Fetterman, but we also they elected someone that died 3 weeks before the election.
yeah.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff you used to talk about when you were a kid, and you're like, hey man, would it be really funny if they elected someone that was dead? And they did.
Yes.
It's bizarro times. Bizarro.
On my side, I'm getting ready for a personal trip that I'm taking the end of the month, and that's been consuming almost all of my time. Going out to Idaho for a week. I'll be leaving the day after Thanksgiving, so there will be a bullet this Saturday. There will not be a bullet next Saturday. There will be a Polite Society 1 week from today, but not 2 weeks from today. So, just personal trip. Gotta make this, and I'm not gonna have connectivity to do bullets. So, or Polite Society. So, just getting ready for this road trip, and really, honestly, looking forward to it. So that's what's been going on with me. I've ordered a new Viridian green laser for my Glock. I currently carry a Car CW9 as my primary gun, and it's got a Crimson Trace red laser on it. And I want to try out Viridian's green laser, and it's instant on, and I want to try all that out. I'm going to be ordering that for my Glock, and we'll see how things go from there. I'm not entirely sold that the instant on is great. We'll have to see how things go. That's kind of what's going on with me. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and step aside to break. When we come back, Rob Pincus is in. He's all set up, and we're going to talk to him about What the Talk America and a few other topics. We'll be right back with that right after we hear from ACLDN.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership, and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
And welcome back to the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining us tonight, it's been a very long time since he's been on our airways, but I'm glad to welcome back Rob Pincus. Rob, thanks for coming on the show tonight, man.
I appreciate you guys having me, as always. I think I've seen all of you within the last month or so, and it's always great to see you guys in person. But virtually works, and we're joined by hundreds, potentially thousands of other people, which is nice.
Absolutely. Let's. What I want to talk about first of all is what I heard you talk about when we did meet in person last, and that was Gun Rights Policy Conference, and that's Walk the Talk America. I want to lead off on that one, then we'll get into the other things you've been doing, which is really interesting as well. But if you could please give us just the 30-second elevator pitch about what Walk the Talk America is and why people should support that.
Walk Talk America is a nonprofit organization that works to reduce negative outcomes at the intersection of gun ownership and mental health issues. We know that obviously affects gun owners the most. So gun owners, our gun community, all of us, are the ones that should be the most concerned about this. And we need to lean into it. We need to not be afraid of it. We need to be proactive about it. And just like we say that the existence of crime means we carry a gun, we train, we're prepared to protect ourselves. It doesn't make us paranoid. It doesn't make us scared. It makes us prepared. We need to start thinking about mental health issues in the same way. And largely because of the work, I think, of Mike Sedini and the rest of the Walk Talk America team over the last few years, the gun community has been much more proactive and much more willing to talk about these issues.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. One of the things, the negatives that we get from statistics from the other side always include suicide numbers. And if we can knock those numbers down just the same way we're knocking crime numbers down in free states, if we can knock suicide numbers down, it's a benefit for the entire country as a whole, but it's also a benefit for us as gun owners because they don't have those stats to use.
Well, there's the political side, right? We can't deny that. There is that political expediency of fewer negative outcomes with guns is helpful to the arguments that we make that guns really aren't the problem. Guns really aren't the problem anyway, right? Regardless of the number of people committing suicide is a problem. If the number of people who, especially impulsively, in moments of desperation, in moments where they feel like they're going to be too much of a burden to those that they care about and who care about them, or when they feel like they have no hope. Some of this is caused by long-term and pre-existing mental conditions, and some of it is a rash decision-making that happens after something like a DUI or a breakup or a job loss or some combination of drugs, alcohol, and other negative aspects of everyday life, things that we've all probably weathered that we might find ourselves, and I say we because this isn't some other people, this is us. This is middle-aged white guys who are gun owners. Over 60% of the firearms involved deaths every year for the last decade or more have been suicides, and the largest demographic of suicide participants, unfortunately, in our country are middle-aged white guys, and for a variety of reasons, not all of which are long-term mental health issues. Some of this stuff comes up suddenly, and it's a decision you can't take back. And obviously, if it's a firearms-involved suicide, it's a firearms owner or a member of a firearms owner's family 99.99% of the time. It's not someone who goes to a gun shop and buys a gun to commit suicide who never owned a gun before. That's very, very rare. It does happen. It's very rare.
It is extremely rare. John, Charlie, anything you want to ask before we go off? Yeah.
With regard to suicide, one of the communities where suicide is a big problem are with our veterans. What is it? Approximately 22 a day, thereabouts. The numbers that I've heard in the past were committing suicide. Is Walk the Talk America doing anything to target not just gun owners, but veterans?
Not particularly. There's a few different things that Walk Talk America does in this space, and it's not all related to suicide, but obviously that's the big thing. Originally we thought the big thing was going to be talking about preventing mass shooters, and obviously there's quite often mental health issues involved in any kind of a killing spree, particularly school shooters and troubled teens that use violence, lash out violently against their fellow students or other people in the school, and then usually end up taking their own lives. So there's a suicide component to that. But when it comes to veterans, the 22 a day is actually an outdated number. There has been some movement there. It's less. It's not zero. We get to zero, then we can celebrate. But it's not quite 22 a day in the last few years. However, what's important to remember is the reason you know that number, and we all know that number, is there are so many organizations that are specifically targeting the veterans. Now, because we work at the intersection of firearms and mental health issues, we know the vast majority of veterans are also going to fall into that target audience that we have, which is gun owners. But there's other things that we do as well, not just suicide prevention. So we look at like trauma mitigation, for example. I shared with Paul earlier today, there's an article that came out, or a podcast that came out this morning on of all places at Bloomberg News called The Big Take. And I got a very fair edit. I know a lot of people kind of get scared when I decide to go off, and I'm not on the polite society, but I'm talking to media that we don't control out of the safe space. Got a very fair edit. We talked about a lot of things. One of the things we talked about was trauma mitigation, and the idea that, if you work at a gun shop and you haven't considered that the person you're selling, because he was talking about, well, shouldn't there be laws and regulations and background checks, and shouldn't people have a responsibility to do these things? Legal obligation and responsibility are not the same thing. I want everybody who works at a gun counter to remember and be aware of, not be afraid of, but be aware of the fact that they could sell a gun across the counter to someone who commits a crime or takes their own life, or who doesn't store the gun properly and someone else takes their life with that gun. So maybe someone who has a known mental health condition that is a risk. And if we know that, and if we talk about it, and we're not afraid of saying that to everyone who works in a gun shop, then I personally think everyone who works in a gun shop will take that responsibility more seriously. Well, not where it doesn't matter what the law says. They will worry about who they're selling guns to. They will worry about their fellow gun owners. They will do things like take, simply hand out one of our Walk Talk America bracelets that has the link to free and anonymous mental health screenings that you can take, powered by Mental Health America. We've had thousands of people anonymously take these, and we know that we get the reports back. People are helped or they're relieved. They take a screening, and I thought I was depressed. I thought I had depression. I was just a little sad. According to the screening, I'm okay. I already feel better, and I'm going to go on about my life. Thanks for that. Or, wow, I do have an anxiety problem, and I'm going to go seek help. And I've sought help, and I didn't lose my guns, and I did it in a Second Amendment-friendly environment. That's another thing that we do. We do education inside of the mental health community about what responsible gun ownership looks like. It's not about storing your ammunition and your guns separately. There's a lot more to it, and that's probably not even a good idea. And it's certainly not a good idea to recommend to someone if the reason they own guns is for defense of their family and their home. So we talk a lot with mental health professionals about how to better serve our community as well.
Nice. I was... you just brought it up, and I was going to ask you if you could talk about the screenings that there are on the website.
Yeah, so we've got a number of different, there's bipolar, there's depression, there's anxiety, a number of different, what I would call common concerns that people have. They may not be common illnesses or problems, there's a number of common concerns people have, and they can take these screenings, and again, it's powered by Mental Health America. The reason we work with Mental Health America is that Mike Sedini, when he formed Walk Talk America in 2018, found a position paper that they're a civil rights organization for people dealing with mental health issues. And they fight for the rights of those who have been diagnosed or who are being treated for mental health issues. And of course, people who are going through proactive mental treating, but don't need to have any negative repercussions from that. So they do a lot of work for rights advocacy to include the right to keep and bear arms. They said very proudly and boldly before they even met us that they do not have a political position on guns. Gun ownership is a civil right in this country, and they want to make sure they're protecting the civil rights of people in the community affected by mental health issues. So the screenings will kind of give you either a low, medium, high potential risk of this disorder, whatever it may be, and then maybe give you some links to seek help online or a recommendation to go find a mental health professional to talk to. One of the things I tell people is we need to treat mental health like we treat our physical health. So if you're getting, a woman gets a check for breast cancer. You might get a check for prostate cancer. You might get a screening for colon cancer. You get a dental cleaning, once or twice a year. You get a physical, right? They check your heart, check your blood pressure, all that stuff. And you're being proactive about your health. You eat well. Maybe you do some exercise. Maybe you don't drink quite as much or smoke quite as much, whatever it may be. You're doing things to help your physical health. What are you doing, I'll ask people, for your mental health? And it could be as easy as, well, I get some fresh air, or I watch TV shows I like, I go to the range, it's fun, it's therapeutic, it's relaxing. But there's probably some more formal things a lot of people could be doing. And one of the things that we've lamented for years is my health insurance gets me a dental cleaning or gets me the colon cancer screening, but it doesn't give me any proactive mental health care. And I've said that for years, and Kaiser has taken away my talking point, because I found out this year that for no extra money, my coverage level now does include some proactive mental health care. I can visit a therapist, talk to them, and say, here's what's going on in my life. And they decide if, just like I might need blood pressure med, which I don't. Maybe I need some therapy or something else, which I probably don't. But it's good to go in and just check on that every once in a while. So we need to think of it more like we think about our physical health.
Very cool. I want you to comment in here. Dana over on the YouTube side, Dana is the guy that writes up our DGU segments. He says, wearing my Walk the Talk America and Faster bracelets every day. So they are getting out there, Rob.
Right.
While we're talking about this, one of the stigmas about mental health is, if I go see a counselor, if I go get help, they're going to take my guns away. That's a huge stigma, or they're going to try to take my guns away. That's a huge stigma with mental health. Is there, what can be done to help with that?
Well, first, it's incredibly rare. And people talk, especially about the VA, it's incredibly difficult for the VA. And one of the realities is I say all the time that Rob Pincus thinks there are some people that I know that sometimes, at least, should not have access to firearms. Maybe it's, I know a guy who drinks a lot, and when he's drunk, I don't want him driving, and I don't want him to have access to firearms. So we have to, first of all, I'm okay saying it. There are some people who shouldn't have immediate access to firearms. And, people that are incarcerated for violence, people who can't distinguish between reality and delusion, people who don't understand, they aren't mature or cognitively present enough to understand the ramifications of their actions if they use a firearm. There are people that shouldn't have access to firearms, right? Having said that, it's very, very difficult to, from the outside, through a mental health process, say that person is in that condition. Now, we worry about things like red flag laws, which are temporary. We worry about things like involuntary commitments that are used politically. When laws are abused, we have a problem. Abuse of law is a problem. We kind of fight through all that. The VA, it's almost impossible for the VA when a veteran comes in and seeks mental health care, unless that person really is a danger to themselves or others, to take away their guns. And even if they do, it's probably going to be through an involuntary commitment or a very temporary phase. Now, again, going back to treating mental health care like physical health care, if I said, hey guys, I can't be on the show tonight, I hurt my leg. You might think, well, Rob, you just hurt your leg. Why can't you be on the show? You wouldn't immediately jump to, oh my God, Rob's been attacked by a shark and he lost his leg, right? But sometimes when we say mental health disorder, it's like, oh no, Rob has a mental health disorder. One person who very bravely she's on our board now, Ashley Linsky, History Heals, the greatest voices we have in our community, great advocate about firearms history and education, especially in the political community. She very bravely came out and talked about her mental health issues. And, we all know her. She's great. She's awesome. But she talked about the problems that she's had in the past and the way she's dealt with them. And she now has joined our board at Walk the Talk America and is a really strong advocate for dealing with these things. We know Dave, Parkinson's shooter. We know that Parkinson's comes with, at times, some mental issues that also need to be dealt with. And maybe you shouldn't be driving. Maybe you shouldn't have immediate access to guns under those conditions. But they're temporary or they're treatable in almost every case. So does it happen? Do people go seek mental health care and either A, find out that there's good reason why, at least temporarily, they shouldn't have access to guns, or B, the system abuses a power in some cases? New York, New Jersey come to mind, and Illinois as places where it can be a little bit more treacherous. And as I don't want to sensationalize, it's kind of like talking about mass shooters, right? Are there teens that shoot other kids in their schools? Yes, that happens. Are they gross anomalies and incredibly small statistical blips in terms of all the negative outcomes of firearms? Yes, it also is. So it's kind of one of those things. Does it happen? Absolutely happens. But I don't want people to be afraid of seeking help because they may really need the help. And as I said, it can start with free and anonymous stuff. It can start with talking to a counselor at work. It doesn't have to start with checking yourself into a state hospital where the records are they're going to be submitted to state police, and the state police are going to say, oh, you were admitted to a state hospital, but now we're going to take away your owner's ID card if you live in one of those states.
And I got to say, open secret, I had a stroke in April of 2021, and I voluntarily stopped carrying for quite a while until, honestly, I went through a Masada Youth Group Mag 40 class, and Masad gave me a clean bill of health, said he'd be willing to be with me when I was armed. So it's honestly, I've been told it's fairly rare to have that level of self-correction. I like the fact that you're offered, that Walk the Talk America is offering this out and offering these screenings so somebody can see in the privacy of their, they don't have to go out to a mental health professional to see if there's an issue, that they can find out, first of all, if there is an issue, and then decide for themselves what way they're going to go with it.
It's incredibly important. And, one of the other initiatives that Walk Talk America supports is the Gun Pro Pledge. And people can go to gunpropledge.org. Gun Pro Pledge is PRO, is Pledge of Responsible Ownership. And that pledge is taken, again, in private, but with two trusted friends. And basically, if the three of you were to get together and be supporters, you pledge to get education in the proper use of whatever your firearms are, if it's defensive, recreational, hunting, whatever it is, take steps to prevent unauthorized access to your firearms, and also to seek proactive mental health care and to distance yourself from firearms in situations and under conditions where you probably shouldn't have immediate access to them. And again, that could be when you're drinking, right? And then you sign the pledge, and Charlie and John witnesses. John signs the pledge, you and Charlie witness it, and again, Charlie signs it, and John and you witness it. And you guys, it's private. You guys handle it. Now, I think a lot of us do that for each other, and certainly would do that for each other if asked. But if you're a new gun owner, or if you're entering into this agreement with your friends formally, now you're thinking about that when you reach for the gun as well. That I owe those guys a phone call first. And maybe if you think something's wrong with your buddy and you might be uncomfortable saying something, hey, you signed the pledge. You have every right to tap on that guy's shoulder and say, hey, can we talk about something for a minute? And I think that's really important.
Very cool. We're at the end of our first segment, Rob. We got more we want to talk to you about, not just Walk the Talk America. Can you hang on with us for one more segment?
I can do at least half of the segment. If I don't get to the volleyball banquet, I'm going to be in big trouble. But I can do at least half the segment.
Yes, and just let me know. We'll dump if we have to. So, perfect. Folks, we're going to step aside to break. We're going to hear from CNJFO. We'll be back in 30 seconds with more with Rob Pincus. Hang on right after this.
New Jersey is a civil rights wasteland where an unconstitutional law known as justifiable need keeps ordinary citizens from exercising their right to bear arms. New Jersey spits in the eye of freedom, ignores the Bill of Rights and the Heller decision. New Jersey politics are an anti-civil rights bulldozer and a spreading cancer. The Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, a tax-exempt nonprofit, has a goal to defeat justifiable need, reverse course on all anti-freedom laws, and render aid to other jurisdictions by filing Supreme Court-bound litigation. CNJFO is a beacon of freedom behind the Iron Curtain in New Jersey. Join CNJFO's strong, enthusiastic patriots. Support the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners today. Protect all our rights and return freedom to the Garden State. To donate or learn more, go to cnjfo.com.
All right, we are back. This is our second segment with Rob Pincus. Rob, I don't think you remember this. The very first time you and I met face to face was at a SHOT Show several years ago. And the very beginning of what is going to be, I believe, finally released later this year was rolling out then. You had one demo firearm there that you were working with. And I'm understanding now this is almost ready to go to market. Am I right?
Yeah, in 2023, we will be releasing the Vinity Arms PD10, finally. So the PD10, and I know we're on live YouTube, otherwise I'd be showing one off, but we just had it actually at the USCCA Expo. We had a few there. We actually made an announcement today that we have our official at the launch, the first 6 months, we're going to have an exclusive leather holster partner with JM4 Tactical. So things are really coming together. We have a distributor that's taken the gun on, a distributor that I've known and one of my partners has known and worked with for a couple decades. We really have a good idea of what we're going to be doing in terms of how this gun is getting out. You know, we changed our approach after COVID. The COVID pause gave us an opportunity to change our approach. And instead of piecemealing, you know, this person doing a slide, that person doing the barrel, that person doing a spring, and 2 other springs coming from that guy, we made a bunch of decisions and took some hard steps to rebuild the company with one roof. And John, you actually visited the factory and gotten a tour.
Yep.
John came over with a couple other guys and got a chance to shoot a couple of the production prototypes. We're getting ready to enter into our endurance testing. And of course, you know, we've had function testing, we've had reliability testing, and we've had it with, you know, barrels or slides from a bunch of different vendors. We kind of had to start all over, and it's all coming out of our building now, and it's being assembled in our building. It'll be shipped out of our building, and it's an exciting time. But you know, John, you got to see the place. It's not just made out. It wasn't a delusion, was it? Do I need to get on the bracelet?
It was not a delusion. It is actually 4 minutes from my house. Very high-tech factory, CNC machines, a lot of automation, very smart machines, high-tech, and people knowing what the heck they're doing, and that's important.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to metal machining.
You always said, you know, Mike Sedini, he knows about sales. I you know about the gun, right? I've seen thousands of hands on thousands of guns for a couple of decades on the ranges. I think I know how guns and hands should go together and stuff like that, and what makes a good defensive gun. But I don't know anything about manufacturing. I can do private gun making. I can make stuff and fabricate stuff. But you know, if I were going to try to sell these, I'd be sitting at this table, and they'd each cost $5,000 if I were going to pay all the bills, right? And I'd sell one a month. But to really have a production facility and a manufacturing capability, you need guys that do that. And we partnered up with Alpha Tech there in North Carolina, and they do it really well. And they've done it even for other gun companies. And now we've actually formally partnered with them to launch Vinity Arms with the PD10. And we've got a lot of other things that'll be rolling out right behind it. So it is exciting times.
One thing I want to ask you about, and I heard this on the Bloomberg podcast, your marketing on this, well, not your marketing, your distribution on this is going to take a little bit of a left turn from what most gun companies do. If somebody wants to be able to print a frame, you will just send them the file. They can print the frame. Am I getting that right?
Yes, we're doing traditional distribution. This is a traditionally manufactured gun. It's the same kind of injection molded polymer process that, you know, all the other popular guns use, the Smith & Wesson, the Glock. It's not, we all slightly different formulas, but we're using a process that is very well established now over the last 3 decades in the gun community for our traditionally manufactured and sold guns, the ones you're able to buy at your local gun shop. What we're also going to do, which there's no other manufacturer, official Type 7 selling guns through the distributors and gun shops, you know, at SHOT Show kind of manufacturer, that is going to just give away the file. We are going to provide the file after we start shipping the traditional gun. Shortly thereafter, we will be providing the actual file to the actual gun. There's a couple different parts, there's a couple different angles, let's say, for 3D printing, because the 3D printing is different from the injection molding, but we will have a 3D printable frame that is the current generation frame, and that frame will be customizable. So the people in the 3D printing community will know instantly what I'm talking about. They can change the size of the palm swell, they can change the angle of the grip, they can change the stippling pattern, they can put their initials on it, put their logos on it, whatever they want to do, and then they can buy the parts from us, right? And that's the thing, is I can 3D print a Glock style frame, a 3rd generation Glock style frame all day long, customize, do whatever I want. I can build these polymer 80 type, you know, Glock 3rd generation frames out of kits, 80% kits, and then I can buy aftermarket slides. I could buy a Glock slide and then buy a full Glock, take the slide off, take all the internal parts off and put it in that. But what I can't do is go to Glock and say, hey, will you send me the Gen 5 Glock file so I can print it and let me buy a parts kit from you? They'll tell me, no, like, we don't do that. What are you talking about? But we're going to do that. So, and I hope it sets a trend. I hope other gun companies, like the big ones, say, this makes sense. Why wouldn't we be embracing the private gun making community? Why wouldn't we? If Polymer 80 wants to put out a kit of our our current generation frame, have at it. We'll sell them barrels, we'll sell them slides, we'll sell them everything. I would love to have a licensed kit for people that make 80% kit guns to build my gun. And I promise you that 3D printing community, once they get their hands on that file, they will do something that's so cool with our frame and our parts that we may contact that guy that designed it and say, hey, we want to use that design. But anyway, I appreciate you guys having me on tonight. I do need to run family obligations, but thank you very much for having me on. And I would love to talk to you guys when you all get the chance to shoot the production or the PD-10 and 3D printing and anything else you guys want to talk about ever. I appreciate all the work you guys do.
Well, and yeah, Rob does have to get out of here, but Rob, thank you for taking time. A very pressed schedule today, but thank you for taking your time to talk to us today, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You bet.
Bye-bye, Rob.
Bye.
We are going to go ahead and we're going to step aside to break. We're going to hear from the complete combatant, and when we come back, we've got news. We'll get to that right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, we are back. This is the news segment of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. Again, thanks to Rob Pincus for showing up tonight. He really did have to get out of there because he's got a volleyball tournament, a family-related thing he's got to get to, and so and thankfully he lives very close to it. Otherwise, he would have had to bail all the way on us. But let's get started on the news, guys. From
Paul, before we get into the news, can I say one thing about Rob's prototype?
Yeah.
Given that I have shot it.
Yeah.
It's a nice little pistol. It's a compact size. It's very slim. It fits in the hand nicely. I found it very accurate. Bearing in mind, I was shooting a prototype. He did some stuff to make it even slimmer than, let's say, a Glock 43.
Wow.
And part of that was using a steel magazine and not a polymer magazine. They're actually using a magazine body from a 1911 because it's that much thinner.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, it's also going to be cut for optics. The one I shot was not... Well, the one I shot... Well, actually, I shot 3 of them. 3 prototypes. So I probably will buy one. I mean,
it's certainly going to be
not just
something,
because I shot one, but because I liked it.
Certainly going to be something I'm going to be checking out myself. A lot of it depends on price point. A lot of it depends on other things. But
sure.
Will I own one? Probably. Will it be a daily carry gun? We'll find out.
Maybe.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's a real good chance I am not going to own one, not for any other reason than I live in a state where they have to approve firearms. So I don't think
Utah does that now?
Dude, this is crazy. I had someone contact me this week to want to know if I would do a Utah class down in Virginia. So
Really?
yeah.
Well, you could go to there's I know there's people down there that would be great guests on your show. So
I've already contacted somebody. Like I'm gonna parlay it into a whole trip.
There you go. There you go. All right. Let's again the major news of the week. We're not going to get away from this. Is the elections. And we did not get a red tsunami. We did not get a red wave. We maybe got a red ripple. Maybe. Which kind of sounds like a new drink, but anyway.
This was completely disappointing. For months and months and months, this is all we heard about, and this is all everyone talked about. It's a red wave. It's a red tsunami. The Republicans are taking over. Stand back, and all the memes with Trump surfing, on a red wave and a red ocean. This is the biggest wet fart there ever was. I mean, really, it was just pathetic. It was pathetic.
I got to agree with you, Charlie. And from what I understand, from what I'm reading, it's based on under 30s who are voting strictly on abortion, rich white women, and independents preferring a Fetterman who's Dane Bramaged to just across the country. And I think the polls were really wrong. Let's get real.
Well, and I'm after the past 3 elections, I'm absolutely done believing polls, at least on the national level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, honestly, who's going to tell them the truth when they walk out of the poll anyway?
Yeah,
I wouldn't believe. No one's ever approached me and asked me how I voted when I left a polling place, and I tell them it's a bunch of nunya. Really, that's how I see it. I really like this whole thing with Fetterman. This guy, when we were young, politicians were someone that you kind of looked up to. They were folks, they were guys that always dressed well and looked good and seemed like they had their stuff together. And at some point, all of this changed. And I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was Jimmy Carter coming out and saying he's lusted in his heart. I don't know if it's Bill Clinton coming out and saying I did not have sex with that woman, Monica Lewinsky. I don't know if it's when George Bush came out and said he was doing cocaine when he was in college. I don't know when it happened, but I guess we want regular people, and regular people in the office. I think I want someone that's better than me in the office. I want someone that knows what they're doing, that's run some businesses, that has experience, that understands all of this stuff that I don't understand. And I don't think that's Fetterman.
Yeah.
I'm going to open a poll today, a betting pool, I should say. I say that by June 30th, 2023, he will have resigned and somebody else will be appointed to take the rest of his term, and it'll be for health reasons. I'm saying that Fetterman is a placeholder.
You know what? That's not a tinfoil hat thing. I don't.
No.
Yeah, I could see that. And we're looking down the barrel at I'm going to say 3 months, and we may have the same thing in the presidential seat.
Maybe.
Wow.
With Fetterman, the governor of Pennsylvania, the new governor, is going to be a Democrat. I almost said Republican. He's going to be pressuring Fetterman to say, "Oh, geez, John, you really need to go." And he might appoint his wife, for God's sake. This person can only serve. Yeah, I know. only serve the remainder of the term or to the next election because they have to have a
Yes.
special election.
Yeah.
Well, no, he can serve to the rest of the term, the rest of the 2 years of the term, and then they have to the next major election.
Right. Right.
Unlike
Now,
a House member where they would have to hold a special election almost immediately.
yeah, House members cannot be appointed by governors. So if a House member resigns or leaves office for any reason, there has to be a special election, and it's usually done post haste. So yeah,
Having his wife in, this is ridiculous. This was ridiculous when it happened to Sonny Bono. It's ridiculous when any other situation. Like John, so you've been a financial guy. Imagine you pass away. You have a company that you run, taking care of people's finances. You pass away, and then your wife takes over. I'm not saying your wife doesn't know anything about finances. I'm saying she's probably not qualified to do your job. Why would we do this with politics? Why would we do this with politics? Why?
I see her as the Evita Peron of Pennsylvania.
or Imelda Marcos maybe.
No more Evita Peron. I haven't looked at her feet, so I don't know, what her shoe closet looks like. But
Oh my goodness.
she's pushing more than he ever. And is she from Colombia, Panama, Peru, something like that?
This is Fetterman's wife?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, at least she can't be president.
Yeah. I want to slip off to one more story, and those of you who joined us, hour and 45 minutes ago, have heard this story. There was a report on SI Live, which is let me go over to that story.
Staten Island.
Staten Island, yeah, and they had a gun buyback, which you can't have. They didn't own them to start with. I'm going to call them compensated confiscations. But they had a gun buyback, and it turns out there were no questions asked gun buyback. 72 firearms were turned in. I'm trying to go over the story. 49 handguns. Oh, I'm sorry, that can't right. My math in my head says that's not right.
I know that's what the story says, though. 49 handguns, three shotguns, and an assault weapon.
Right.
The assault weapon looks like one of those high points.
Yeah, it does. This is these no questions asked gun buybacks. They are a fencing operation. There's no other way to put it. You are giving out something of value for this firearm, and you're not asking any questions, and you're actually probably giving away evidence. You're not getting evidence that you could be getting if you found out if these guns were stolen. Oh, by the way, if they are stolen, they get destroyed. They do not get returned to the original owner. You don't know if they were used in crimes. They're just. This is a perfect example of the gun is the criminal, not the criminal. And if we get rid of the guns, the criminals won't do anything else. They'll be nice, good people again. Really, they will. It's the guns that's the problem.
Well, I read the stories from the Staten Island Advance, which, interestingly enough, was just down the block from my grandparents' house in Staten Island. But if you had a non-working handgun and you weren't going to pay, it was just like a piece of crap. I think we can say that word. You got $200 and an iPad in exchange for your basically crummy pot metal handgun. I mean, yeah, they probably got some decent ones, but it could be a Jimenez, a Lorson, or anything like that. And it's a handgun.
Yeah.
And you get an iPad and $200.
It's I don't want to say that would be hard to turn down, but I have an old World War II rifle that was my grandfather's, and my grandfather's in the Army in World War II, and it is oh man, it's a 7mm Mauser, and it's sporterized. It's kind of chopped up a little bit. It's in the metal is all rusted out. The wood is all chipped up. It looks like hell. And when we found it, it was missing a bolt. And I went to a gun show and I found a bolt for it. And the bolt I paid $100 for the bolt, which it seemed like a lot, but I didn't know anything about Mausers. And I took it to a gunsmith and I said, "All right, what do you think? I know it doesn't look good. Can I shoot this?" And this guy says, "The bolt is broken. There's like it's got some little fin that you flip over on it, and when you turn it to safe, it fires. So the bolt is broken." And the guy said to me, he says, "Listen, you don't have a gun. You have a piece of wood and you have a piece of metal that look like a gun. Don't even turn this into a lamp. When there's a gun buyback, take it down there and get the $25." And I said that, I walked out and I said, "That's not the answer I'm looking for." And I went home and I put it away, and it shall live and never be fired again. There's no way I'm going to get rid of it because to me it's my family heirloom. I'm not giving it to someone for $25 to Target or some nonsense like that.
Yeah.
Now I have heard people in other states what they did is they gathered up a bunch of junk, or dealers even, crap that had been turned into them or traded in, where they could get something that they paid $25 for. They traded in to the police and they get $200, and they use it to buy more inventory to buy a better gun.
Oh yeah. Trying to remember Illinois. Trying to remember the name of the organization that does that. They put the signs out on the highways all over the place.
Guns Saves Lives.
Yes,
John
Guns
Bach.
Save Lives does that. And my brain is starting to freeze up. Sorry. Let's go ahead and move on to our next. And our next story is actually fairly well related to the first one. We've got a story here off Liberty Park Press by my boss, one of my bosses, Dave Workman, and turns out that Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell, there was a shooting, one student dead, 2 students arrested in Seattle, and Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell is using that to try and knock down Washington State's preemption law. And again, this is another issue of, it's not the gun, stupid. If you prosecute people that do crimes, this includes juveniles, you keep them in jail. Do not let them out when just promise you're not going to do anything bad and come back and see the judge. Make sure if somebody breaks the law, it hurts. And if they break the law in a serious way, make sure it hurts permanently, meaning the rest of your life is in prison, or 30 years of the rest of your life are in prison. Take the bad actors off the street. Your problems with guns are going to go away. It's a very minor, very, very minor amount of your problem. Your problem, Mayor Harrell, is you've got a criminal problem you will not do anything about.
Well, we talk about also, like yesterday at UVA, University of Virginia, there was a mass shooting where 3 people were killed and 2 wounded. Well, it sounds like some random event, some guy shooting up the university. What it turns out to be is an ex-football player shot and killed 3 of his former teammates and 2 other people in a gun-free zone. that is not some random act. That was a targeted murder. And he would have gone after these guys for whatever reason, regardless if he had a firearm, regardless of whether it was a gun-free zone. It could have been at a party. He might have, as they were coming back from some field trip, and he used that as the way that he knew they were going to be right at the one place at the one time.
Yeah.
It was an assassination.
It was, and I'm betting we don't know anything. We don't know much about the suspect yet. I would suspect when we find out more about the shooter, the killer. I expect when we find out more about the killer, he's going to be a frequent flyer. He's going to be somebody the police knew fairly well, and he's going to be somebody that's been in trouble multiple times. That would not surprise me at all. I want to go back to Charlie. You were talking about your grandfather's rifle. CNT Designs and Arms says a goof gunsmith could fix that rifle.
I thought about this. I'm like, well, what if I had the stock replaced, and then what if I had the barrel replaced, and then what if I had the action replaced, and then it'd be just Grandpa's gun?
There you go.
Well, the action probably is still pretty good. Just everything
right?
else.
It's replace everything. It's just like Grandpa's gun. I think now it's just a conversation piece. That's all.
Well, and
although I think it'd be cool to get it up and going. Sure.
When you were talking about it, you said originally it didn't have a bolt, and you bought a bolt for it. You paid $100 for the bolt, and you found out the bolt you bought was broken.
Yeah.
Did you get your money back for it?
I did not. I don't know who I bought it from. I think what I did was I carried the rifle around to a gun show. Oh, this is crazy talk, right? I carried the rifle around to a gun show, and I tried to say, "Hey, listen, this is what I have. I'm looking for a bolt for this." And I ended up talking to a guy who said he had a bolt. So we switched numbers, and I met him someplace, gave him cash, he gave me the bolt, and I'm like, "Cool, man." It doesn't sound shady or anything, does it?
Let me meet you around back. We got this. Yeah.
Right. But, I mean, he was an old guy, too, so I trusted him,
As long as the barrel and action are good, everything can be reworked, CNT Designs and Arms says.
All right, well, I think it'll be a lifelong project to get this thing up and going again. I think it'd be really cool.
You could use electrolysis to get rid of the rust, or I've always heard using a copper penny. It won't scratch the metal, but you get the rust off. But it's got to be copper.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I want to jump down and show us. This is one that Rob and I did not have time to get to on the bullet. Oregon looks like, and it's still not official, Oregon looks like it's going to get Measure 114. It'll be $65 to obtain and purchase a permit for every firearm. You must get a permit and training from the local PD. No local PDs are set up to do this. For first-time buyers, you're going to have live fire training to get a purchase permit. How are you going to get live fire training if you don't own a firearm to go get that live fire training? And the state can take as long as they want to process that application. The 4473, if it comes back delayed, most states it's 3 business days. The retailer has the option to go ahead and deliver you the gun. Not in Oregon anymore. If it's 31 days, oops, well, your NICS is no longer good. Try again. And so it's repeat and rinse, and you're just not going to get it.
Yeah, and I've seen many sheriffs already say we're not going to enforce at least the mag ban. As it was, I looked at the vote totals, and you had 4 or 5 counties that voted for it, and 28, 29 counties that voted against it. Unfortunately, it's just Portland and the couple counties just surrounding that. It's going to court. We know that. FPC is calling for it. SAF is calling for it. It is going to go to court. And
oh, yeah. Alan Gottlieb tweeted. Went to Twitter and tweeted. Alan Gottlieb
tweeted
that the first draft is already complete. They're just, right now they're looking for people in Oregon to be, my brain is not working, I'm sorry.
The plaintiffs.
Litigants?
Yes.
Plaintiffs.
Yes, thank you. So this is going to court. SAF is going to bring it to court. We'll just have to, you got to be a little bit patient on it. And, yeah.
So, as we look at this, $65 for every firearm. So if you have 10 guns, $650, right? This is going to get expensive. You have to have a permit and training from the local police department. Nothing against the police department, but when I've seen instructors that are police officers, their training's a little bit different than what civilians have, and sometimes their attitude about things is a little different than civilians. So I don't want to say I'm always a little leery when someone says they have to get training from the police department, but I'm like, they're not the same. They open carry and here in occupied territory, they can have a Gen 5 Glock brand new that I can't purchase. I was at a gun store yesterday and they have labels on the guns that are for law enforcement only. So there are guns that the police can have that I can't buy. There are certainly magazines that the police can have that I can't buy. There's absolutely modern sporting rifles, or patrol rifles as they like to call them, that the police can purchase that I can't have. So and it's nothing against the police. I'm not anti-police. I'm just a little leery about that sort of stuff. And now this is what the police are going to do, and they're going to spend time teaching people. And unless it's the police officer in Florida that says, hey, come on down here, get training. We got classes every other week. We'll teach you to shoot. You can shoot these guys. And then maybe it'll be okay.
Even then, I'm going to say this, and I said this on the bullet here a little while ago. Be careful who you get your training from. If their major claim to fame is, I was a police officer, police officers the police officer training is how to close with and apprehend criminals. That's not our job. If their major claim to fame was, I was a Navy SEAL, or I was an Army Ranger, or I was military. Army uses rifles to go take and keep objectives. And rifles and larger equipment. So none of those that I just mentioned are, I'm looking to save my own darn life and stop a criminal from doing an extremely bad thing. So be careful where you get your training. And in Oregon, now you may not have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's we've got friends that are instructors that are in Oregon, and how is this going to affect their business? Like they can't teach anybody. They're going to put a whole state out of business for firearms instructors. That seems a little ridiculous.
Comment in from Dana. They won't let you buy a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, Charlie?
Only if it's. Never mind.
They got to have the black cover over it or something.
That's right. Or they put black over their eyes.
Wow.
No, jeez.
All right. Well, hey guys, let's do this. We got to get to DGUs, and I've been sitting in this office chair way too long. So let's get to break. We're going to do DGUs, and we'll close the show out after that. Hang on, everybody. We're going to hear from JPFO. We'll be right back right after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. jpfo.org.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. This is our defensive gun use segment. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. Defensive gun use segment is intended as information only, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations, or sometimes other hosts. We disagree from time to time here. I'll go ahead and take our first DGU here, this one out of Oakton, Virginia. Shortly before 6 p.m., a man walked onto private property of a Fairfax County home. The homeowner encountered the man outside, and a fight developed. The homeowner went inside to retrieve a gun. The now home invader entered the home armed with a large rock. He confronted the homeowner, and during the incident, the homeowner fired his gun. Officers were called, and upon arriving at the home, gave first aid, but the intruder succumbed to his injury. The homeowner's wife, another adult, and his 2 children were in the home at the time and were uninjured. Homeowner was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. Authorities were treating the event as a self-defense incident. This single-family home is located in a wooded, remote area of Fairfax County and is a long driveway. No abandoned vehicle has been found in the area, and they've not determined why the now-deceased man was in the area. So I'm going to say, on the old game rock, paper, scissors, handgun beats rock.
I would agree. One of the reasons I'm going to say the guy might have been in the area is I just pulled it up. The median home price, the average home price in Oakton is over $600,000 with incomes to match. And you have a remote house in a wealthy area. There's stuff to steal and money to get.
Yeah.
I did a class with an instructor here a number of years ago, and he said the thing with bad guys is if you can get to the bad neighborhoods, then the bad guys can get to your neighborhood. Like the roads go both ways, you know.
Yes.
Very true.
So it's one of those things, and you know, when you drive in certain areas, you know, you go through the good area, and then all of a sudden it turns into a bad area, or whatever. Even if it's nice buildings and dilapidated buildings, it's 2 blocks that separate these, and it seems like there's some sort of imaginary boundary that people don't seem to cross, and I don't get it.
Oh, but I live in a good neighborhood, and I do live in a fairly decent neighborhood, but I'm not letting my guard down.
Well, what is it? John Dillinger asked why he robbed banks? Because that's where the money was. Why do burglars rob wealthy neighborhood? Because that's where the good stuff is. I mean,
Absolutely.
You're going to rob the guy who has doesn't have a flat screen TV, has the old tube TV? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be hard to get that out of the house.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of it, absolutely. I remember when I was growing up, these huge monstrosities that took 4 people to carry. They had a record player, they had a stereo, and the center third of it was friggin' huge TV, and on the left side of it was a liquor cabinet. So,
Oh, that's awesome. So how come? How could this guy? He got into his house. He went into his house. Did he not? Was the guy close enough that he couldn't shut the door behind him and lock it? Did I don't know. I mean, it's still a happy ending story.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point, Charlie.
Like if somebody's coming after you and you've got enough space to run away, once you get in your house, shouldn't you slam the door shut and lock it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You know?
Should be one motion. Boom. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, John, you got our next one, man.
Yeah, the next one comes from Warner Robins, Georgia. Just after 2 p.m., Warner Robins police received a call about a kidnapping progress at the Walmart. When officers arrived, they found a 67-year-old man being held at gunpoint. The man had grabbed an unidentified child and took the child to the woods behind the Walmart store. He had thrown the child to the ground and began choking the child. A witness to the event stepped in and held the man until officers arrived. The man was arrested and charged with aggravated assault and cruelty towards a child. The child was turned over to Houston County Sheriff's Office Juvenile for follow-up and care. They also followed up to state that the man was related to the child and the act was not random.
Wow. I'm gonna go back 30 years, and our daughter was having an absolute fit in the grocery store, and I mean an old-fashioned temper tantrum. I remember it was a store up at 18th and Cleveland here in Sioux Falls that Susan and I and our daughter were at. And what did I do? I let Susan continue shopping. I picked up this screaming, ranting, raving child, put that child on my shoulder, and walked out to the car and put her in the back seat of the car. I could imagine that to several people, I looked like a kidnapper. I'm glad that somebody stepped in and it sounds like saved this child's life.
Yeah, I pulled up the story, and I don't know whether it was a grandfather or an elderly uncle. Well, 67 is not elderly, that old, but had almost a Middle Eastern sounding name, and I'm not saying that to cast aspersions on people from the Middle East, but I'm thinking a cultural difference, and we don't know whether the child was a boy or a girl. But
yeah,
I'm glad the guy stepped in and said, "Okay, enough is enough." And it's a hard decision to make.
Well, and relating back to my own situation, I could honestly, if somebody were to have approached me 30 years ago, I could have said, look, this is my daughter, and I certainly wouldn't have been choking her.
No.
Right. There is a line for both of these. I mean, if you've got to discipline your kid, if you got to get your kid quiet and take them out of the store, absolutely. But choking them is certainly not going to get your kid quieter.
Well,
okay, eventually it will. But you know, it's like it's like that old joke where they say, "Oh my gosh, it's you know, if you're I can't remember. Who cares? Who cares?" But yeah, that's that. Choking a child is certainly crossing the line of some forms of discipline for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do this. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna step out. I gotta end this soon because my backside is hurting bad. So let's go ahead and step aside to our final break. We're gonna hear from JPFO again. When we come back, we'll let everybody know what we've been up to with media, and we'll shut the show down. Hang on, one more segment, folks. Right back, right after this.
It all failed before. Alcohol prohibition brought us organized crime, and no less alcohol. Drug prohibition brought us murderous, no-knock, wrong house raids.
Police! Search warrant!
No, wait! The crack house is next door!
Now gun prohibitionists want laws to lead us down that same path. Don't Americans ever learn? Just ask yourself, Isn't government the only beneficiary of police-state policies? Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Information available at jpfo.org.
All right, we are back for our final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Normally I throw to Rob when I do this. Rob couldn't be here with us tonight. He's got other things he's doing at this particular time, but I want to encourage you to go to his blog, slowfacts.wordpress.com. He puts up a lot of stuff, and it's always really good stuff. Go check his blog out. John, what's been going on over at Only Guns and Money, man?
Well, as I noted in personal news, we were on a family trip to the Panhandle of Florida, and part of our route was through small town Alabama, basically a 2-lane road between Montgomery and well into Florida. And the highlight of that part of the trip was stopping at the Flora-Alla Pharmacy in Flora-Alla, Alabama. As you can guess, it is right on the border between Florida and Alabama. But what made it cool was that this was a combination drugstore, gun store, and gift shop with other stuff thrown in as well. It wasn't just drugs and guns. It was drugs, guns, and gifts. And I'm actually just kind of happy to see places like this that still exist in small town America. I did some blogging while on vacation, but not too much. But I did get the T-shirt. Believe it or not, even in small town Alabama, they will do tie-dye. It's a tie-dyed T-shirt. So I've got the T-shirt to prove I was there.
Very cool.
That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
Drugs and guns and gifts, all on the positive side, by the way.
Oh, yeah. It was... I asked the little ladies at the checkout counter, do you mind if I take some pictures? Oh, honey, you go right ahead. People do it all the time.
Nice.
Nice.
Charlie, what do you got media-wise coming out?
Well, I got to say, I'm glad that we had Rob Pincus on tonight and that he talked about Walk the Talk America. I spoke with Michael Sedini recently, who is also with WTTA, and he and WTTA is going to be the focus of the next Writing Shotgun with Charlie in this month's Armed Lifestyle magazine, which is coming out right around the end of the month. So it was nice to have Rob talking about that, and like I said, I had a chance to catch up with Michael Sedini, and we talked about all things Walk the Talk America. Yeah, that's what I got. And then next week I have a show that I'm going to be putting out next Tuesday, but I'm not 100% sure who it's going to be. So yeah, that's what I got going on.
All right. On my end,
Paul.
Yes, sir. On my end, going to be doing, as I stated earlier in the show, I'm going to be doing regular bullets all this week, and then regular bullets up to Thanksgiving Day next week. Starting Thanksgiving Day, there will be no bullet for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And there will be a Polite Society next week, but not the week after. Personal trip that Susan and I have to make, and those of you that know. So both looking forward to this trip and kind of dreading the trip. So that's going to wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Rob Pincus for joining us today. So for Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, and Rob,
until the next time,
stay safe,
be aware,
and we'll see you down the road.
views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right. Extremely, because I'm not kidding, my backside is in huge pain. Extremely short post-show tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Looking over at the YouTube side, something I've never noticed before, but I noticed tonight, we get a lot of comments. I don't get all of them on the air, but scrolling back, I'm showing a lot of them have message retracted. Well, just to let you know, once you submit that message, it gets into my broadcast software. I can see it whether you retract it or not. So if you're calling me a bald-headed jerk and then you want to retract it, and nobody done that, but if you are calling me a bald-headed jerk, that's true, but if you retract it, I can still see it. So anyway,
you can run. You can delete, but you can't hide.
All righty, that's going to do it for us tonight, folks. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for watching the show, and we'll see you next time we record next Monday night.